our barbell hip thrusts are a great strength move for our glutes, that's our butt, our hamstrings. It's also going to be working a little bit of the lower back as well and a little bit of our calves, but primarily focusing on glutes and hamstrings. For this movement, we're going to want a bench or a short box or something that is elevated off of the ground that you can get your shoulder blades up on. We don't want a full height bench typically for this one. You want a little bit shorter if possible. This can be done on a normal bench at the gym, but like I said, if you have the access to it, you want more of an angled bench or a shorter bench that you're not so far up off the ground, creating a different angle on the back for this one. So I'm going to use our Reebok bench, and I've got 1 foot up, 1 foot down, so it creates a slight angle here. This seems to work pretty well for this exercise. Oftentimes, if you're at a regular gym and they have a decline bench or a bench that you can adjust up and down to where it goes into a decline position, that's going to be a great option for you. Adjust it down into that decline position so you're leaning up against it, just like I am against our decline Reebok position right here. We're then going to grab a barbell, load it with a little bit of plate, start off light if you've never done this movement before. Typically, you're going to want some sort of a pad here. That way the barbell itself is not pressing on those hip bones, which can be pretty uncomfortable. I'm using a squat pad that's typically used on the barbell if you're wanting it for squats. I've also seen people use like a rolled up hoodie. I've seen people use towels. I've even seen people grab kind of the gym mats that go on the floor and kind of fold them a couple times and place them on the hips. So you have a lot of different options here. I really like these. They're really nice to just slip on and off the bar for those hip thrusts. They're pretty cheap. You can find them for about $10 or so on Amazon. So if you're doing hip thrusts a lot, these are a great, easy addition that's going to make it a lot more comfortable on those hips. So we're going to pop that pad onto the bar if you've got it. We're going to lay down or sit down on the floor and then scoot up against that bench. We want those hips down on the floor, but we want that upper back to be able to be braced on the bench here for when we're doing our hip thrusts. We're going to extend those legs underneath the bar and then roll that barbell up to the hips here. We're then going to wiggle around, make sure we're in position to where that back, that mid and upper back is going to be on that bench. We don't want it to where it's just the shoulder blades, and we don't want it to where we're all the way up and we have that low back on the bench. We want that low back to be off. Think about kind of where your sternum is at, right around to the back. That's kind of the position we want that back, the bench to be at, in our mid back. I'm then going to bring my feet in fairly close here so I can get good full range of motion. Feet flat on the floor, right about hip distance apart. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my shoulder blades pressed in to that bench as I push my hips straight on up, squeezing my butt at the top. Press up as high as I can get, squeeze at the top, and then I'm going to control it back down to where I'm touching the floor again at the bottom. When I do this, I'm going to be slightly watching down towards my feet. That way I'm keeping my head kind of in a good neutral position here throughout that movement. I'm not going to be arching my head back like this as I come up. I'm going to keep it kind of in line with my spine for the most part here. That'll allow me to focus more on my hamstrings and glutes for this movement. Again, feet flat on the floor, pressing up, squeezing at the top, and then controlling back down. Number one mistake made on this exercise is just not getting a good setup, not getting into a good position for this exercise. A lot of times I'll see people way down here. It's going to put a lot of pressure up on the shoulder blades. They're not going to get good range of motion. Or I'll see people way up against the bench here. Again, this is putting extra pressure on the low back. And it's also going to be pretty easy here because we don't have a whole lot of range of motion. Make sure that you're down, like I said, right around where that sternum is. Wrap it around the back, and that's about where we want that bench to end at. Another common mistake I see made, not getting the feet in close so you can get full range of motion. As you can see, if my feet are still way out here, I don't move quite as much. If they're in close, I'm able to lift a lot more through that full range of motion. So, focus on your setup here. Make sure you've got that bench at an appropriate height. Make sure you've got those shoulder blades at an appropriate spot on that bench. Make sure you start off with a light weight, get your feet in nice and close, get comfortable with that movement, and then, since this is a muscle group that typically is able to lift a fair amount of weight, start to bump your weight up there once you get comfortable with that movement.